Hi, my name is Kaylee Amuso, and I'm going to be talking about the case study that I did on Disney. So I chose case study 2-1. It is about Disney and Disney's amusement park expansions into other countries around the world. So, as we know, Disney has its two main parks in the United States. We have the first park, which is Disneyland in Anaheim, California. And then we have Walt Disney World, which is in Orlando, Florida. I know that Disneyland opened up in the 1960s and Walt Disney World opened up in the 1970s. And the 1990s rolled around and Disney wanted to expand into new horizons across the sea, quite literally. They opened up their next park, which was Tokyo Disneyland. Tokyo Disneyland was a success. It was a great hit. Japanese people absolutely loved the park. They love our culture. They loved everything that had to do with Disney, so it was a huge success. So Disney wanted to open up a park in Europe, and they did not do much research with the culture surrounding Europe and how Europe felt about Disney and American influence. So Disney opened up what was called Euro Disney, and they picked Paris, France, because they thought that it was the most centric location in Europe. And the first year was a flop. They did not do as well as they wanted to. They did not do as well as they intended to. They came into it with very large ego on their shoulders, and they went into it just like they did in Tokyo. And they assumed that it would work because of how successful Tokyo Disneyland was. However, the French mind and the European mind did not appreciate the big American culture and the big Disney propaganda that was being put on them. The park did not resonate with European or French culture at all. For example, Disney banned alcohol in the Euro Disney park because they wanted it to be American, family-friendly type of environment. But in Europe, specifically France, because France is actually they consume the most wine in the entire world. They are the country that consumes the most wine. And when they found out that they were not allowed to drink and not allowed to have a glass of wine with their meal, it really affected them. And they felt like Disney was very clueless and did not understand what they were doing in France. Another thing was vacationing. In America, usually we have quick little vacations on the weekends, a Friday to Sunday thing where you take your family to Disney and enjoy the time you have. In France, everyone waits until the summertime, usually around August, and families go on a month-long vacation. Disney did not prepare for this. So they decided to open up Hong Kong Disneyland. And they learned from their mistakes. They realized that they needed to be more culturally open and culturally appreciative and represent the culture of where they're opening up their park. And they did that with Hong Kong Disneyland. However, the biggest complaint was that the park was too small, and many of the Chinese guests did not know much about Disney characters at all, because for about 40 years, Disney characters were banned in China. So they couldn't really relate with the characters and couldn't relate with the experience that they were having. And during this time, this is when Disney released Mulan and finally brought in some Chinese culture into the Disney world. And in Hong Kong Disneyland, they had a Fantasia Gardens, which was brought in a huge turnout of guests because the culture in China was very much related to nature and taking photos. And so Disneyland really did well in that aspect and the cultural aspect. However, they just did not take into account that the park should have been bigger and that the Chinese people were not familiar with all these characters. So there were a lot of things that Disney did have to learn. Unfortunately, with the great success of Tokyo Disneyland, it really threw them off course for their future endeavors in which is now Disneyland Paris and Hong Kong Disneyland. But they went into opening up Shanghai Disneyland, and they did a wonderful job there. They brought in all different kinds of cultural aspects. They made the park a lot larger. They made sure that people were aware of the different characters and that they had Disney characters that they could relate to. So overall, Disney had a lot to learn from their mistakes in the past, but they thrived and now they are one of the biggest companies in the world.